Welcome everyone to Choice Conversations, the podcast dedicated to helping you improve your life, one choice at a time. I'm your host, Chris Stefanik. Let's do this.
Hey gang, today I'm bringing you a book review of one of my favorite relationships books. You've probably heard of it. It's The 5 Love Languages from Gary Chapman. This book, has, in my opinion, 4 really important concepts inside of them. One of them is just the concept that people have different languages they speak when they're expressing love for one another. The 5 languages, but that's just one, and in my opinion, not even the most important one the book brings out. So we're going to talk about that today. But before I get into that, I did just want to say quickly that I'm recording this differently than how I normally record my podcast. Normally, I have a condenser mic, and I run that into a mixing board, which then the mixing board has an output that goes into an H1 Zoom audio recorder. Well, today I'm on the road. I don't have that whole setup with me, so I just grabbed my H1 Zoom. It's very portable. And it has built-in mics. I don't know if the built-in mics are as good, though, as my condenser mic. So, we'll see. My apologies if the audio quality isn't great on this, although the built-in mics on the Zoom are supposed to be pretty good. So, hopefully it'll be alright. Alright, so 5 love languages. The first concept that the 5 love languages has that I found to be really important is that people have a love tank. So think of this like you would like a gas tank on your car. And when you're not getting enough love, your love tank gets low or empty. And then this causes friction, right? You don't feel like you're loved. If your love tank is empty, you don't feel like you're loved. You don't feel satisfied with the relationship. And there's a lot of issues that come up. In this book, one of the things that Gary Chapman is really great at, and I've read several of his books actually, so he's got a whole series. So I've read The 5 Love Languages for Children. I've read The 5 Love Languages, just the regular one. It's aimed at a romantic partner, like a husband-wife kind of scenario. And I've also read his book, which I plan to do a book review on this as well, of The 5 Languages of Apology. But at any rate, this concept, flows through his various books. He has others like The 5 Love Languages of Teenagers, which I might read, probably will read soon, since my daughter is almost 12. She'll be a teenager soon. But at any rate, when the love tank is empty, there's all this friction in the relationship, and little things become big things. Somebody, like, the examples of stuff like somebody, like, expressing that they're not happy about something or whatever. This is perceived as being nagging, and why is my wife always nagging me? She can't just leave me alone. All this stuff. But if your love tank is full, you might be all right if your wife comes in and says, hey, I'd appreciate it if you mowed the yard. It's getting a little tall. You might not perceive that as nagging. You just be like, oh, okay. Things just run. It's like a lubricant to the relationship, right? If your love tank is full, things just tend to run smoothly. And Gary Chapman, all of his books are loaded with anecdotes to give examples of the concepts he's talking about, the points he's trying to make. And so he's a marriage counselor and has, had counseled probably, thousands of couples by this point and done a lot of marriage workshops and seminars and the like. So he's got all kinds of anecdotes. And in several of these anecdotes, there's people that were, on the brink of breaking up. Maybe were separated, were about to file for divorce, that sort of thing. And they started implementing his tactics, the 5 love languages, getting the love tank back full. And they said it was like a miracle. It completely cured their marriage. It fixed it where they went from, basically their marriage being over to having a great marriage, being like the envy of their friends because they're so in love and so happy with each other. So it's a big deal. I mean, I don't know that filling the love tank, and we'll get into how you fill that love tank in a minute here. I don't know that this book cures everything, that like all of a sudden now there's no more problems in your relationship. But for some people, if these anecdotes are to be believed, it's enough on its own that it pretty much cured everything. Like having the love tank full was provided enough a solid foundation for that relationship that they were able to get through what other issues might come up. They had that love in each other to keep them afloat during any storm. Really important, and I definitely see this love tank as something that makes a lot of sense. And now that I've read the book and have awareness of it, I can notice it in myself when my love tank is starting to get empty. And it's almost like you have a separate love tank for each relationship. So one relationship might be just great, but then another relationship you feel like there's friction, and it's like, man, I'm just not feeling like my love tank is full here. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. Just because your love tank might be full in one relationship doesn't mean that your love tank isn't empty in another. That wasn't something that was explicitly stated in the book, but it's one thing that I've found to be true as I look at the different relationships in my life and apply this new filter, apply this new lens to the relationship. As I view the relationship through this lens, I can see that each one has a separate love tank. So that's the important concept. Number one is the love tank. So how do we go about filling the love tank, or how does this love tank go about becoming empty? Well, that's because people speak different love languages. So when you're expressing love, you do it through a particular love language, and there are 5 of them. And Gary Chapman claims that each person has a primary, or sometimes people have maybe 2 primary. They're bilingual, and people hear love, they receive love also through these languages, through their language. And so if the other person isn't speaking their language, even though one person might be expressing love, the other person isn't receiving it as being an expression of love. It's not filling their love tank because that's not one of the languages they speak. So this maps well to verbal languages, to human speech, right? If I'm speaking to somebody who only understands Japanese and I'm doing it in English, I might be expressing some concept to them. I'm trying to send them some sort of message. They have no ability to receive it. And vice versa. If they speak back to me in Japanese, I have no ability to receive it. They're sending out a message, but I'm not receiving it. It's kind of the same thing. People are fluent in certain love languages. So what are these love languages? There is touch is one love language. People like a hug, to snuggle, a little pat on the shoulder, that sort of thing. Touch is definitely one. Quality time is another one. So spending quality time with the other person where you have their undivided attention. So that's the way he defines the quality time, is when you have the other person's attention. So he says if you're watching TV together, that doesn't count as quality time because the TV has your attention. The other person doesn't have your attention. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out on a date together and spend the whole evening together to have quality time, although that's a great way to fill up your tank if you're somebody whose primary love language is quality time. But just checking in, you get home from work, take 10 minutes to sit down with your partner, give them your full attention, and talk about how you're doing. What were the highs of your day? What were the lows of your day? And share that with each other. Just check in, These are all examples of quality time. Of course, affirming words, this is the one people probably think of the most for expressing love. And I believe it's the first one in the book, because it's the one, it's what people think of. This is saying things like, hey, I love you. You're really important to me. Boy, you're beautiful, whatever. There's actually different dialects of these various love languages as well. And he gives different dialects of the affirming words love language. So there's terms of endearment, which is like, I love you, you're my sun and stars, whatnot. There is praise, telling them how great they are, or how awesome it is that they did some certain thing or whatever. Gratitude, expressing your gratitude is another one. Encouragement. I think you get the idea. That's another dialogue. And actually, this last dialect of affirming words, I don't know that he actually mentioned it in the original book, The 5 Love Languages, but it was definitely in the 5 Love Languages for children. And it was guidance. That was another dialect of affirming words. He said that's an expression of love when you're offering guidance to the other person. And I think that even though he doesn't necessarily mention that in the one for adults, like the romantic partner version of the 5 languages, right? I think it still applies there as well. So guidance could be things like, say you're somebody that your primary love language is touch. The way that you could offer guidance to the person would be to alert your partner that that's it. Hey, would you mind coming over and giving me a shoulder rub? That would feel really great right now. Hey, would you mind snuggling up with me on the couch for a bit? I want to watch the show, and I would really like to do it with you and have my arms around you while I'm watching the show. That's guidance. It's basically showing your partner the way to your heart. Rather than having them grope around in the dark and or think that they're expressing love for you. Hey, I tell them I love them. Why are they not ever happy? I tell her I love her all the time. Why is she not happy? Why does she act like I don't love her? Well, if you offer guidance, then it's not a mystery then, right? So, affirming words. It's the 3rd of the 5 love languages. Acts of service. It's the 4th love language. So acts of service is doing things for the other person. Maybe this is cleaning house, mowing the yard, running errands for the person, going to, pick up their laundry from the laundromat, whatever it may be. It has a million different forms. Acts of service, that's another one. That's how some people express love to one another. And the 5th one, last but not least, is gifts. Some people, they feel loved when their partner gives them a gift. If their partner's not giving them gifts periodically, then it's, their love tank starts getting empty, right? And this is the kind of thing where a lot of times people they learn how to express love from watching their parents. So, maybe their parents, the father would, he felt like taking care of things around the house was the way to be a good husband. Mowing the yard, mending the walls if there's any, there's damage to the walls, or, painting, that kind of thing. Maybe it's, they saw the way the mother expressed love was by cooking and cleaning and stuff like that, and that was their idea. And so they get this idea that that's the way to express love. And, but the other person may not hear that. Maybe the other person learned that, the way you express love is through touch, being hugged. And some people get kind of hung up on touching. Some people don't like to touch. They're not a touchy-feely person, that sort of thing. But this is definitely something where, in some cases, people will actually, they've learned that the way to express love is using one particular love language, because that's how they saw their parents do it. But at the same time, their love language is actually something different. And so they're like, they might be completely unsatisfied because they're not even, they're trying to express love using acts of service when what's really important to them is words. Affirming words is really their love language, and they're not understanding why they're not feeling satisfied when their partner's doing, acts of service for them. Why am I not happy? Why am I not happy? My wife does an amazing job of taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, and already, but I'm not happy. What is it? And it's like, well, you haven't figured out what your love language is, what it takes to fill your love tank. And the dialects thing is an important thing. So, in each one of these, it's not just affirming words that has different dialects. For some people, it might be, like acts of service is a good one. A guy might be like, geez, why is my wife always, riding my ass? I mow the yard every week. I paint the fence when it needs painting. I fix, whatever it is. I'm always, if there's a nail that needs hammered, I'm hammering that nail, right? And meanwhile, the wife is like, my God, this guy will not pick up a dish to save his life. Could he just vacuum the freaking floors for once, And they're speaking different dialects. So he feels like he's performing acts of service. This is where they're even speaking the same love language, but it's a different dialect. And that's enough that the other person doesn't feel like they're being loved. They're not getting that expression of love. So it's very important to get the dialect right as well. And, and understanding these concepts is a big part of that. Obviously communicating with one another and finding out what the love languages are. That's a big part of that. And Gary does a great job in the book of helping you to learn what your own love language is and helping you to figure out what your partner's love language is, and gives you a lot of strategies for figuring that out. Really good stuff. Now, the next concept I wanted to talk about, we've already talked about the love tank. We've talked about the 5 love languages and their various dialects. The next one is actually the definition of love. So I've heard lots of different definitions of love, and none of them were all that satisfying to me. Let me just go look and see what dictionary.com says. Okay, so dictionary.com, definition number 1, a profoundly tender, passionate affection for another person. Definition number 2, a feeling of warm personal attachment or deep affection, as for a parent, child, or friend. 3, sexual passion or desire. And so on. There's several others here. Or, let's see, that was the noun. Let's look at what the verbs. The verbs, okay. So, to have affection for. That's the first definition of love as a verb. To have a profoundly tender, passionate affection for another person. To have a strong liking for, and so on. You get the idea. I guess the problem with that, there's a couple problems with that that I don't like, and it's, what if you don't have a strong liking for someone, but you love them, you love them, or you want to have love for someone, you want to choose to love someone, and you don't necessarily have it. Like, I want to love the universe and all of its inhabitants. But under this definition, I can't really do that. I can't have a profoundly tender, passionate affection for everyone in the universe, for people I don't even know. It just doesn't work. There's one, I know a lot of people have come to the show are familiar with Stefan Molyneux and Free Domain Radio. His definition of love is the spontaneous reaction to virtue. It's your spontaneous reaction to the virtue in someone else, right? And there's no choice there. I mean, if I don't just spontaneously react to somebody else's virtue, then I can't love them, right? You're just at the mercy of the love gods by these different definitions, and I don't like that. To me, it didn't sit right. Well, I'd say the other thing that the problem with these definitions is they're temporary feelings. So, like, this warm affection, there might be somebody you love, but in that moment, you're pissed off at them. You're not feeling warm affection for them. So in that moment, you're not loving them. These are like temporary things, right? Or just maybe you're tired and you're not feeling it, or whatever the case may be. And like every moment, every day, you're not having like this warm, fuzzy feeling for the people that you love, the people that you care about. So it's just very temporary. So Gary Chapman, his definition, and I don't have it right in front of me, so it's not going to be word for word, but his definition is, love is wishing well for someone, like having goodwill for someone, and actively working to help them fill their needs. So having goodwill towards someone and working to help them meet their needs. I really like this for several reasons. One, it kind of gives you the power to love, and it takes that power to love and it puts it in your own hands. It removes it from the love gods. So I want to love the world and everyone in it. I want to love the universe and all of its creatures, human or otherwise. I can do that now. With this definition of love, I can do that. I have goodwill towards everyone in the world, even people who have wronged me. I still wish them well. I am working towards helping the universe and all of its inhabitants meet their needs. I really feel like I am. Like when I'm doing this podcast, I'm helping to make the world a better place. The people that listen to it, I'm giving them tools that they can use to improve their lives. So people I don't even know are improving their lives. And even if they don't listen to the podcast, they might run into somebody who did listen to the podcast who that impacts their life that way and helps them, that they might get their needs met that way because I impacted a listener. And then that listener, now armed with tools and resources for personal development and growth, is then able to better serve that person. And so I feel like this allows me to love the universe and everyone in it, which is an incredibly powerful outlook. I guess for lack of a better word, I love it. I love this definition of love. And it doesn't have to be temporary. I guess in each moment you may not be working towards helping someone else meet their needs, right? You might not be at every single moment. And certainly if you're working against someone, acting in a way that, after the fact, well, let me just give an example. So let's say, you're having a bad day and, you end up taking it out on your kids. Your kids you get triggered by something your child does and you scream and yell at them. After the fact, you feel bad about it. You wish you would have done something differently. Well, you know that at that moment when you were yelling at that child, according to this definition, you were not helping them to meet their needs. Probably the opposite of that. And at that moment, you weren't loving them. And I kind of like that as well, too, because then now it's like, okay, when people are misbehaving, they say, well, yeah, I treated you like shit, but I love you. It's like, no, while you were treating me like shit, you were not loving me. That's bullshit. And now I've got the proof to show you. Look at what Gary Chapman says about love. Look at his definition. You were not helping me to meet my needs at that moment. You were not loving me in that moment. So, to me, it all comes together when you use this definition of love. I like things to be very explicit. Maybe this is just common sense. And maybe there's just a lot of semantic stuff going on here. It's just semantics, Chris. We get it, You're worried too much about this. I don't know. For me, I'm the kind of person where I really like things to be explicit in my mind, concepts to be explicit. It helps me to form a picture of the world and gives me guideposts for how I should live my life. So I really appreciated this definition from Gary because it's the best one I've found so far. All right, so far, the important concepts. We've got the love tank. We got the 5 love languages and their various dialects. We have a new definition of love that is very empowering. It takes love away from the love gods, from just being some spontaneous thing that you have no control over. I'd say the best for last. Concept number 4. This is what Gary Chapman calls the in-love experience versus true love. So what is this in-love versus true love? So in-love, this is like when you're head over heels for someone. You first meet them, you fall for them, and you're crazy about them. You're probably screwing like bunnies. They can do no wrong. And Gary, how he describes this is he says, this is a biological response. The in-love experience is a biological response. It's a pair bonding instinct. It's a mating instinct. You ignore the faults of your partner. They are your sun and stars. They are your world. Nothing they could do could ever be wrong. This love will last forever. It's the whole Romeo and Juliet thing, right? And, it's probably some kind of evolutionary feature of the human race that is designed to propagate the species, right? It's designed to ignore whatever the other person's faults are and screw like crazy, right? And he says in that way it doesn't really involve free will. You don't necessarily have a choice. It's just this biological response, this pair bonding instinct, right? And it's not love as a choice. And he says by its very nature, it is temporary. It is always temporary. So the average person, I guess they did some study where the average person is locked in the in-love experience for 2 years, but, it varies, right? It can be shorter than that, it can be longer than that, but typically it lasts about 2 years, then that's over. And it's not commonly taught that this is just some biological reaction. This is just some temporary experience. If you look at our popular culture, at least in the West, I can't speak for the whole world, but in the West, in American culture, you look at TVs, you look at books, there's this myth of like falling in love and how great it is, and we're going to last forever. And when they present love in the storybooks and the fairy tales and stuff, it's very much this in-love experience. You're head over heels, and you're crazy about the other person. That part's real. That does happen. This in-love experience is real, where you fall crazy, fall in love, you're totally smitten with the other person, and whatnot. That happens. When people find that, and they discover, they're like, yes, love. I'm in love now. I get it. I see what all the stories are about. I see the fairy tales. I'm experiencing now. This is the one. This is the one. Hell yeah, we're going to be together forever, My life is set now. No matter what else happens, I have the one I love, and then this is more important than anything. They are my everything. I couldn't live without them, right? Well, then about 2 years goes by. You're no longer in love with them. You start to see their faults. Faults start to bother you. And if you don't have the tools for resolving conflict, there's conflicts that are going to start coming up. If you don't have tools for peacefully resolving that, you're going to start pushing each other away, and you're going to start questioning, gee, it's not like it was before. I thought this was the one. I was head over heels for them. But it's not like that anymore. They're not perfect. They were perfect. I don't know what happened, but they're not perfect anymore. Maybe this isn't the one. Jeez, I thought, we had that, what they got in the storybooks, but we don't have it now. I guess this isn't the one. I guess we gotta end it. This isn't love. We fell out of love. And then you see people get divorced. You see people break up and all that. And it's really tragic that they just didn't realize what they were going for is not attainable. The in-love experience, it's temporary. It doesn't last forever. And when that ends, it doesn't mean that now this person isn't the right one for you. They may not be the right one for you. Maybe they really are a terrible fit for you. And you were blinded by the in-love experience. But maybe they are the right one for you. And people that don't learn this, they just keep going from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next. They'll be with them. Oh, they'll finally find someone they fall in love with. Everything is great. And then they fall out of that love, right? And they're like, oh, they're not the right one. Ah, damn it. Love kicked my ass again. Time to end my third marriage now. Maybe I'll go see if I can find a fourth. That kind of thing. Their life just becomes a string of tragedies, right? As far as romance goes. So that's the in-love experience. But Gary Chapman gives us another view. He says, when the in-love experience ends, that's when true love can begin. And what is true love? True love is when you choose to love someone. It's now no longer just a biological response. You see their flaws. You see their warts. You say, you know what? I'm going to love them anyway. Even though my biology isn't just driving me forward to mate with them, I still am going to love this person. I choose to. And he says, the true love experience, it's not even possible until the in-love experience ends. Because until then, you don't have a choice. You could sit there and try and tell somebody that's in love, look, that person's not right for you. There's X, Y, and Z why it's not right for you, and it's doomed to end in tears. You can tell them that. They're not going to listen to you. Because they're locked in the in-love experience. And they're just not going to see it. I mean, you're wasting your time. I'm sure we've all had that experience of seeing somebody that was like, with somebody that was clearly, it was not going to work. But that's the beauty of when the in-love experience ends. That's when the true love experience can begin. You know, you have to get through that in-love experience first before you can start true love. You know, it's a choice. In-love is not. You know, it's true love, it's volitional. You choose to stay with someone, you care about them, you care about their growth, etc. So, put this one last, and I say it's the most important because even if you've never learned anything about the 5 love languages, and my partner's primary language is touch or gifts or whatever, even if you don't learn a definition of love that suits you, you don't learn Gary Chapman's definition of love or about the love tank. If you don't know about this, every time that you fall in love, you're going to think this is the one, and when you fall out, you're going to think you're not in love anymore, and well, this sucks. I guess I don't really love them. I guess I should end it. This isn't what I was looking for. I'm looking for to be in love, and I had it, but it's gone. So I want that back. I want to find my true love. Well, true love can only happen after this ends. So, knowing that, I think is the most important lesson in here. And what it tells me is, honestly, you should never long-term commit, like get in a marriage, have kids, until you've made it out of the in-love experience. Until you're clearly not in that anymore, until you're clearly in the true love experience. And there's got to be some way, some kind of test you can run on yourself to figure out if you made it out. I think most of the time I'm sure it's not like flipping a switch though, right? It's kind of slowly you transition from the in-love to the true love experience, or from the in-love to out of in-love. But I would encourage everyone, before you commit to something long-term, especially before you have kids, because then it's like, you're stuck in being in some sort of relationship with this person for, the next 18 years, if not the rest of your life, if you have kids with somebody. Hold off on making that commitment until you pass through the in-love phase. Enjoy that in-love phase. Enjoy it. I know it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Enjoy it, but don't make a long-term commitment until that's passed. And then you can then think clearly and then choose. Do you want to stay with this person? Is this person's values aligned with yours? Do you have good strategies for resolving conflicts peacefully? Do you keep each other's love tanks full, right? Do you have goodwill towards the other person? Do you genuinely care about them and want to see them do well and actively work to help them meet their needs, right? You can then look at all these things and make the choice to love this person or the choice not to before you make that commitment. Really important concept. To think how many divorces could be eliminated if people just knew this concept. That what you see in TV, what you read about in the fairy tales is a temporary thing. It's not going to last forever. And that's not what love is. That's not what true love is. That's a biological response. And it's not going to last forever. If that was out there, I just think, that alone, I think, how many marriages could it save? If you just had people say, hey, wait till you're out of the in-love phase before you make a long-term commitment. I don't know. It's speculation, but I'm guessing right there would probably eliminate probably half the divorces. The divorce rate would be chopped in half, right? Really important. All right, well, those are the 4 main concepts. It's the concept of a love tank, that we don't feel loved, we don't feel resourceful in a relationship unless our love tank is full. 5 love languages. People have a different language as their primary language, or in some case you might have more than one. I found that it's not like you speak 1 or 2 and the other ones don't matter completely. It's just some are more important than others. So for me, I have 2 that are really important to me. And then another 2 that are nice. They help to fill my love tank a little bit, but not a lot. Those other 2 are the 2 primaries are by far the most. And then there's the 5th one pretty much doesn't mean anything to me. That one doesn't, you could speak that love language to me all the time and it just wouldn't fill my love tank, right? I imagine a lot of people are like that, where maybe there's an order of this one's the most important to me, and then this one's maybe not as much as the first, but still kind of important, and then the rest aren't that important, that sort of thing. But just being aware of this concept and that people have different love languages can be really huge in your relationships. And, being aware of what yours are and what your partner's are, and keeping your own love tank full and keeping your partner's love tank full. Really, really important concept. And, one of the things I didn't talk about that's kind of a cool thing about this is, now that I'm aware of it, I can do acts of service joyfully. So my wife, her primary love language is acts of service, right? And, once I started earning some money and thinking about what's important to me, I was like, time is more important to me than money. I'd much rather have time to have some quality time with my wife or my daughter, or play guitar, or go play tennis, or whatever it might be, or work on my podcast or whatever it is. I'd rather have time than money. So for me, it's a no-brainer to pay somebody to clean the house, for example. And my wife was dead set against that, right? And there would be times when I would be cleaning house and I would be resentful. I'm like, man, I don't really want to be doing this. This isn't how I want to spend my time. And then I learned that acts of service is her primary love language. And this is how I'm expressing love for her. And it completely changed my attitude. I was now able to be joyful while doing these things, while cleaning house, doing these things that I otherwise had no desire to do at all. And now it brought me joy, and I was able to just have a whole new attitude about it. And what a gift that was for me. For one, I'm sure it was a better expression of love to my wife to be doing it without resentment, right? That she felt more love if I was doing it because I loved her. I was doing these things for her. I'm sure that helped to fill her love tank more than me doing them and being resentful about it. But also just me. What a better way to live life, where I'm enjoying the activities I'm doing and feeling that as I'm doing them, I'm expressing love. My heart is open and love is pouring out for those I care about. Much rather be doing an activity like that than one that, I don't want to be doing, that, it's like that I'm resentful about, that I don't like. It's like now I wanted to do the chores. Now I'm doing the exact same activity. Before I didn't want to do it. Now I want to do it. Now it's something that brings me pleasure and joy to do it. So what a great gift that was. Just this understanding of the love languages brought that to me. So, right. That's right. I was closing out the show and I went off on a tangent. So the concepts, 4 important concepts: the love tank, the 5 love languages in their dialects, that definition of love, right? That empowers us rather than the traditional definition of love, which takes away our power. And last but not least, the in-love experience versus true love. Love as a biological response, as a mating instinct, versus love as a choice. Because that's what we're all about when you come to choice conversations. You want more choice in your life, not less. That's what true liberty is. Alright folks, I hope you like that. I'm going to put a link to the 5 love languages on Amazon right in the show notes. By all means, it's still definitely worth your time. Although this was a detailed, lengthy book review, it's still worth your time to go and read the book. If for nothing else, the anecdotes are really touching and beautiful, and Gary Chapman does an excellent job of telling a story. It's just loaded with stories and anecdotes that really help the concepts to sink home and to inspire you to make changes and have more love in your life. And if you like audiobooks, I actually listened to the audiobook, and Gary Chapman reads it himself. And he does a great job as a reader, and he's really has a different style than the professional narrators, the professional audiobook narrators. As somebody who listens to a lot of audiobooks, I was able to tell this guy doesn't sound like just all the other ones. He has a little bit of I guess it's a southern accent. And it was just kind of a nice change from the normal audiobooks I experienced. So I did enjoy his narration, which, is an important piece when you're doing an audiobook. Not as important as the content, but it's not unimportant for sure, that narrator. Alright folks, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, and you'd like to help me out, if you'd like to express some love for me, the best way you could do that is to help the show grow by going to iTunes, rate, review, subscribe, right? Leave a rating, leave a review, and subscribe to the show. Even if you don't use iTunes to listen to podcasts, to listen to Choice Conversations, you've got some other app. Most people use iTunes, and it helps the search algorithms and all of that. If you just go to the website and subscribe to it there, it will then help this podcast to show up higher in the searches, and I would super, super appreciate that. Alright folks, have a great day. Or not. Choice is yours.